Good evening, commissioners, staff, people here in the audience, people at home. I'd like to, at this time, call our meeting of the March 16th City Commission meeting to order. And the first thing on the agenda for us is the invocation, and Mother Christine Gilson of the Trinity Episcopal Church is here to lead us.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you for calling men and women to civic responsibility. And we pray that this city commission may lead the citizens not only in law, but in compassion for all people, particularly the least of people. We pray that they will make wise decisions and take right actions this evening, and thus assuring that the fine art of living well is available to everyone who lives, visits, or finds refuge in our community. We ask all this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. And God bless Tom Murray.
I'll second that. Okay, next is the Pledge of Allegiance. It's our honor to have Chief Moody here to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no proclamations this evening, but we do have a personal appearance. Susie Locke and Katie Henderson, Leadership Butler Class of 2014 for a presentation.
Good evening. Susie Locke. I live at 1463 Southwest 60th. Katie is sick, so I apologize. She is not here. I'm just here to talk to you as a representative of the class of 2014 of Leadership Butler. Every year, Leadership Butler has an adult class, and their culminating project has to benefit children in Butler County. So this year, if you'll see in front of you, you have a note from our class. That was our sponsorship letter. And then we also have a flyer, and that is the race sign up and give some information about the race. And that is our class project. It's the Rabbit Run, and it is March 28th at the stadium. And we're going to have a lot of events. There's a 5K run, walk, or bike in a stroller-friendly path. The Easter Bunny will be there. There's a kids' Easter egg hunt. The Elks are providing games for kids, and there'll be prizes at all of those. And it's just going to be a fun family event, and all of it benefits Tri-County CASA. And CASA are court-appointed special advocates that work for the benefit of children that have been removed from their homes or are just in a bad situation and are going through the judicial system, and the court-appointed advocates volunteer for them and speak in their best interest. So if anyone is interested in participating, you can sign up for the race at ozendurance.net. It is very inexpensive, and we also have family rates, team rates, and business rates. And then the Easter egg hunt and all the children's activities are free. And I will answer any questions if you all have any.
Sounds like a great event.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yep.
Susie. Our city clerk could give me something to announce too, and this is probably a good time to do this. The Kansas Commission of Veterans Affairs is going to be in town Wednesday, March 18th from 9:30 to 5 at Walmart. And the Kansas Enhanced Veteran Service Program makes applying for VA benefits more accessible to state veterans and eligible family members. The fully equipped and handicapped accessible offices on wheels can set up shop at designated locations in the community or special attention events such as fairs, parades, festivals throughout the state of Kansas. So if any veteran, on Wednesday between 9:30 and 5, this would be a great thing to go out to if you want to check into your benefits. They're coming to town, and so keep that in mind. Okay, we are ready for agenda item number 1, public comments. Is there anybody that would like to come forward, give their name and address, and bring up anything this evening? Okay. Okay, if not, we will close public comments, and we will go on to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, I'm showing one on mine. We went to two. Did you guys get a copy? Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that, gentlemen?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the consent agenda as presented be approved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Agenda item number 3 is dangerous animal ordinances. Would staff like to talk about that a little bit?
I would, and Mayor, if, and kind of in keeping up with Bill, if this is just revising our dangerous animal ordinance, if you have discussion item, it is not necessary that you do it tonight. So
Okay.
it's up to the commission.
During the adoption of our revisions to the dangerous animal ordinance and changing our pit bull ordinance, the state of Kansas also changed some of their chapter numbers and their article numbers in certain chapters. They basically increased them from what were 30s to 50 series numbers. And so our numbering system was not correct in our ordinance that y'all passed. So it hasn't affected anyone. It wouldn't affect anyone. It would basically affect staff. And so the change for this is just simply changing the article numbers in the two different chapters that
There's no change in the wording in the ordinance that we passed at all.
In this section, all we're talking about is the article numbers. The other, excuse me, in section C of the ordinance, it specifically states that the city of El Dorado will do these perform these record checks and request conviction records in these articles from the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. We did that to be able to do those record checks through the KBI at no cost to the city. Otherwise, if there's 3 or 4 people living in the house, it's $20 or $25 a head to check those. And so by changing that item number C to say that the city will do it through the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, those record
But again, the
checks,
standards that we set for owning a Staffordshire Terrier. and
nothing
Albino,
has changed there.
nothing's changed.
This is basically logistics to be able to get those records done and make the articles correct.
Okay. Is everybody on board with that? I think we all read that, and I think we're
Yeah.
okay with it, Brad.
Okay?
Brad, I got one question. How many applications have you had to date?
I probably had 10 so far.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
Nick. Oh. Where is it? It's right here. Okay, I'll get it. I move that, what's that? No, that isn't it. That's the planning commission.
Oh, okay, you're right.
Almost.
All right, what's an ordinance number, Brian?
1194.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number G 1194, an ordinance amending section 6.20 of the municipal code as it pertains to the restrictions in keeping of a Staffordshire Terrier and mixed breeds thereof.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
It's a roll
It's
call,
an
Mayor.
ordinance, we got to
Roll
roll.
Okay.
Commissioner Badway,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapin,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes,
And for the record, I did not have that page in my packet.
whatever, Nick.
For my record, I did. I'd already turned.
It was on my iPad.
Can you make it
Okay,
bigger?
so the motion carried 4-0. Okay? That's number 3. So we're ready for agenda item number 4. Application to rezone 321 North Star Street from an R1 residential low-density district to an R3 multiple family dwelling district. Case number 15-002-REZ.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, Dan and Leslie Bullock are requesting the zone change of a vacant lot they own at 321 North Star. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on February 26th and recommended approval of the application by a vote of 9-0.
Any other questions? I think the minutes is in there of that meeting, and I'd entertain a motion on that.
I move that the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve case number 15-002-REZ, requesting a rezoning of property located at 321 North Star Street be accepted.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, we're ready for agenda item number 5. Determine the feasibility of demolishing the registered historical structure at 200 North Main Street. Case number 15-001-HIS.
Yes, back in December 2014, Emprise Bank notified the city of El Dorado that they were considering constructing a new bank on their property located at 200 North Main and demolishing the existing building. The existing building was built in 1961 to house El Dorado National Bank, and the building is now currently on the State Historical National Register and is a contributing structure to the downtown historic district. The inclusion of this building in the historic district the city commission takes a role in determining the feasibility, if it's feasible to demolish the building or if all other alternatives have been, there is no other feasible alternatives to demolition. Included in your packet should be a letter from the State Historical Preservation Office, along with a letter from Emprise Bank. The Planning Commission heard this case on February 22nd and voted a 7-2 vote to approve demolition. Staff's recommendation on this item is to not allow the demolition of the building. We feel that there are reasonable alternatives that can be exercised, and specifically looking at our comp plan has 9 goals for the city of El Dorado, and goal number 7 is to protect El Dorado's heritage by contributing to the preservation and restoration and adaptive reuse of the community's historic buildings. So the applicant is here tonight. I think Mr. Murphin has something to weigh in as well on this item, and I stand for any questions.
Mr.
My
Murphy.
comment would simply be that the letter that you had received from the state outlines the statutory provisions which apply and reduce in pertinent part the language that it's your job to consider all relevant factors and determine that there's no feasible or prudent alternative to the proposal, and that the project includes all possible planning so as to minimize harm to the property in question. You have, as Mr. Rickard had mentioned, a letter from Emprise Bank which has 7 bullet points, and I think the standard that would need to be applied is to determine, in your view, whether you think those bullet points lead you to conclude that there's no feasible or prudent alternative to the destruction of the building.
Okay, at this time, we open it up to the audience. I know we got somebody here from Emprise that'd like to come forward. Please state your name and address.
I'm Rod Ziegler. I live in 1819 Terrace Drive in El Dorado. And I represent the bank tonight and have worked in that building since 1979, the building in question. And what the bank would like to do, our desire is to build a new bank back behind the building that we're in right now so that we can get away from the intersection, because the intersection, it floods and floods our basement. And that's been going on for years and years, as long as I've been there. And it's added to the demise of the building as far as its usefulness for a bank anyway. And then also we hope to keep open at that location until we get the new building built, and then we can move into that and have the least amount of downtime as we possibly can. But our main objective is to move back off the corner to relieve the problem that we have with the existing basement under the older building. We want to stay in downtown. We're not asking for any tax help. We're not asking for anything. We're going to spend the money and build a new building. And it's the desire of the bank to have this approved so we can go on with our plans. I'd be glad to answer any questions. You have the application in front of you.
I read their application. I remember when that building was built. I'm older than that building, and my first savings account was in that building. I've worked on that building for over 25 years, and no offense to Emprise Bank, but it's a piece of crap. And it's leaked. I mean, water doesn't just go in there, it leaks in there too. And I've worked on it, and I know there's a lot of guys in this town that have worked on it. I worked, when they flipped it, we flipped that whole bank, the whole footprint inside over a weekend one time, and worked our butts off in there. But I know there's structural damage in there. I've seen it. Water used to pour in through the underground electrical, through the service drop. The pipe was perforated, and it used to pour in there, and just, I mean, it was a gusher just right in on top of the switchgear. I know they've built a new service to take care of that, but I've been in that building, and it's still wet. I mean, and it hadn't rained for a long time, and it still smells damp down there.
We have sump pumps and all over the down the basement. I believe I was told years ago the river channel used to run through there at one time, and I don't know that we can keep the water out of there. But the problem that we've had recently has been surface water more than we have rectified a lot of the basement problems. But the intersection floods and the water runs in through the front doors, and we can't seem to keep that out. It's built right on the level, and I don't know how we'd elevate it where it's at now.
But when I read the letter from Emprise, and I saw what it's gonna cost to make improvements to that, and I realized that some of it's maintenance, but a lot of it isn't. And I would hate to lose Emprise Bank from our downtown. I don't know how many employees you have down there, Rod, what, 7, 8, 9 employees?
Well, counting part-time and everything, it's almost 10 employees.
I mean, I think it'd be a crying shame to lose 10 people that work downtown. And probably a lot of them eat downtown and enjoy the downtown, maybe go shopping on their lunch hour. But I think to lose 10 employees downtown would be a bad deal.
Well, we like our lot. We provide off-street parking for our employees and our customers, and try to be good neighbors to everybody surrounding us. So, but I know we're not the only people that have water problems in that area, so I'm not saying, but I know on each of the corners there, I'm pretty sure that everybody that's on that intersection has problems. So.
And we hope someday we can fix that. All it takes is money.
Rod, what's the estimate cost of the new building?
Well, I believe by the time that we get the new building built and tear down the old, we're gonna spend a couple $1 million. I have our property management people here.
Okay, just with the estimate.
1.3 to 1.5.
But does that include the demolition on the old building?
The demo, maybe in 1.5, we'd have to get some more research on that. We haven't mentioned the cost of the demo.
You might go ahead and state those. He might not have been heard on the audio. You might state those numbers. Was it
Okay.
1.5?
You want, Pat, yeah, just get it from him. And then.
Might give your name and address.
I'm Pat Belt. I'm the properties manager for Emprise Bank out of Wichita. And we have done some analysis here, which you guys have in front of you. And that's not all of the things that would need to be done. That was some bulletized points to highlight some of the more significant things. And that followed the flooding that we had. And it created a mold situation in our basement, which is highlighted in there as well. And so when we're talking about building a new structure, we have some estimated costs. We just built a new building in Hayes, and that's where some of our cost is coming from. We're kind of using a model there that would fit nicely on that lot to the north. And so the guesstimated cost at this point, because I haven't put that out for bid yet, is in the $1.2 to $1.5 million range.
The
The building that you built in Hayes, is it in a downtown district or is it out in front
It
of a
is
strip
in,
mall?
it's not in the downtown area. It is on 27th and Vine, which is a more commercial area, a heavy commercial street for Hayes, Kansas.
Right.
I've seen it. My daughter lives in Hayes, and I've seen it. It's a good-looking building.
Yep. And our architect is here as well, Justin Graham. So if you have some specific questions about that, he could field those for you. Do you gentlemen have any other questions for me?
Thank
you.
Dave, and thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to come forward? Name and address, please.
Steve Latimer, 2002 Hazlet, El Dorado.
Okay, thank you.
I'm their neighbor. They've been pretty good neighbors. They haven't shared much money, but they've been pretty good neighbors other than that. I think it would be an improvement to do that. I know it's a historical building maybe, but it doesn't seem very historical to me, and I've been here since '76, and I think a new building would be very, very nice. And if it would solve their problems, I think it'd be certainly an asset to our community, and I would be in favor of that.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Dan Wilson, live at 613 Norris Drive, El Dorado. Come before you today representing El Dorado Main Street. You know, it's obvious that our position is we don't want to see any buildings downtown go. You know, those buildings downtown are what is unique to our downtown. They're our identity and our heritage. You know, there's many, I don't know all the history of the building. I don't know what's wrong with the building. But I guess Main Street position is that we don't, other than those bullet points, we really don't know to what extent the damage is and can it in fact be corrected. You know, some of the things to kind of point out about that building, yeah, it does have some problems, but you know, just about every building downtown does have their share of problems. Do we go and tear those buildings down as well? You know, one kind of neat fact about that building, it was designed by Charles McAfee, who is considered one of the most important African-American architects in the United States. And for him to do a building, being an African-American in 1961 during the Civil Rights movements it's pretty important. I think we need to, you know, glorify that and share that information. Then I got to looking at the comprehensive plan, and I think Scott alluded to this earlier, but on 2-1, words or phrases that describe El Dorado as a place, attractively unusual or old-fashioned. I had to look at, well, that word quaint, attractively unusual and old-fashioned. You know, that the building, like I said, is unique to El Dorado, and if it's the decision of the commission to demo that building, then Main Street will respect that. We just ask that whatever comes in its place will also be unique and contextual to our downtown. Another item to identify in our comprehensive plan is areas or places of El Dorado that should be protected or preserved. El Dorado or downtown Main Street was one of those. And then on the next page, 2-2 of the comprehensive plan, it's the vision statement. The very first paragraph is El Dorado is a city that cherishes our heritage, our community values, and our high quality of life. We have forged a strong sense of place in our historic downtown and work hard to ensure that it remains the heart of the community. So, thank you.
Any questions for him? Do we have any idea what was at El Dorado National Bank before? I was wondering that, because I thought maybe that was the historical building. You know, I'm kind of with Nick as far as the year.
I was 4, so I don't really remember.
No. But there was a building there before, I'm sure, that
Yeah,
they tore
it was
down.
called the McConnell Hotel, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah, it was a hotel.
yeah, okay, okay.
And, you know, another thing that's interesting about that building, what did you say the original name of the bank was?
El Dorado National.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that bank started, I believe, at some point where the Commerce Bank building is. So it's got a history of dominoing to that current location.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience like to come forward and comment on this? Okay. At that point, do we have any commissioners like to make any comments? Mr. Chapin? What do you think?
Well, thank you, Mike. We had other ideas on what the bank should do with their money. Can I hear them?
I don't think we're provided enough information to prove that it's prudent to demolish that building. Like you saw the bullet points that listed what was wrong with the current building and the cost estimate of $650,000 to make those repairs versus a $1.5 million building. We're just protecting those goals in the comprehensive plan and feel strongly that was the community's desire when those goals were created and put in place in the comprehensive plan.
And I think that the other part of our recommendation, it has to do with the state statute, with what your responsibility is. And so, based on a consideration of all relevant factors, that there is no feasible or prudent alternative to the proposal other than the program that includes all possible planning to minimize harm to historic property. And so it's, do you think that they've met that tenet, that they've shown you all possible alternatives that allow you to have this torn down? And so it's, staff's opinion is that based on the information we have, that we can't make that recommendation, because if the only factor was money, if our factor was money, then it would say it's cheaper to fix it than tear it down. And so it's not what we recommend, it's what the state statute commands of you. And so your responsibility is to determine whether that threshold has been met. And so, as Nick pointed out in his experience in that building, it has real problems. And so Nick, I believe, thinks it's met the threshold.
That is correct.
And so it's up to you individually. So it isn't what we want. It's, you're going to have to determine in your minds whether they've met that threshold. And what staff has said is what we've been given, those 7 bullet points, we couldn't come to that conclusion. Not that it's a bad idea, not that it shouldn't happen, but the state of Kansas and the United States of America, they're the ones that controlled this. If you remember, Dave, the commission didn't even have to vote on the historic district. I mean, it went from a group in El Dorado to Topeka without a blessing from the commission initially. Now, maybe they came back after the fact or something, but initially it was going to Topeka, and you were not required to weigh in. And on that decision-making, and the state statute doesn't require that you weigh in on a historic building or whether they're going to designate it a historic building or a historic district. And so it's only, our recommendation is based on what you have approved in the comprehensive plan and how it relates to this, and then what the state statute requires of you in your role as one of the final arbitrators.
Well, with that, I would like to ask Mr. Ziegler a couple of questions on how we think we ought to spend his money. Here we go.
Okay.
If we deny this demolition, will you remain in that building and remodel it?
I don't think there's any way we can, Dave, because one thing, if we do that, we're still gonna get flooded the next time we have a good rain downtown.
Okay.
And I think you guys are trying to figure out a way to raise money, or I've been told that it'll come up here next year or the year after or whenever. But if we spend if we say we do what you say, we're still gonna have a basement that floods every time it rains.
Okay, but I guess my question is, are you gonna stay in that building, or will you find an alternative site to
We
build?
will probably have to relocate.
Okay. That's all the questions I got for Mr. Ziegler, unless you guys have some.
I think,
I don't have any for Mr.
Commissioner
Ziegler.
Young, you got anything?
Not for you. I
No,
think,
I do have
go
one
ahead,
thing
if you
to
go ahead,
finish.
go ahead, Dave.
So with the bank moving out, we have a building that, according to Nick, is not a very good building, which will sit probably empty without anybody wanting to rent it, which will deteriorate further. And I don't see a win-win by leaving the building vacant. I mean, unless you guys have an alternative to figure out how to move a downtown building that is in bad shape, that needs lots and lots of money. I mean, I'm willing to listen.
Your vision is find adaptive reuse. That's one of your goals.
Okay, because I see this as a big lose for downtown if we leave it, because I think it will sit vacant for many years. Now, that's just from going on how buildings move downtown that are in fairly good shape. Don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel about it, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
I'm done now.
Commissioner Young?
I've just got a couple of things. As I reviewed the statute and looked at all of the, I'm going to say, pertinent information in this specific instance, and I was at the Planning Commission meeting as well, and heard the discussions there. In my opinion, it doesn't meet the standards set forth by the state of Kansas and the federal government. So, like you said, Herb, each of us have to determine how we're going to view that. Dave, I don't necessarily disagree with your conversation, your points, but in my opinion, it hasn't met those standards. On a side note, I think my bigger disappointment is that, which it's totally their choice, but my bigger disappointment is the building that they're proposing to replace it with, being one that's a cookie cutter building that's designed for high commercial, West Central type of environment, rather than being conducive to a historic downtown area. Again, if they tear the building down and they're going to build their building, they're going to build their building. But I think that as we, as a community, look at our comprehensive plan, and trying to really work to, as it says in the comprehensive plan, forge a strong sense of place in our historic downtown. This is kind of a mixed bag, because we want to ensure that the downtown remains the heart of our community. So having Emprise down there, having a bank down there, I think is very important. That being said, I also think that it takes away from that, that attractive, welcoming downtown kind of environment when you build a commercial style bank that would probably fit better in front of a Walmart than it would be in a downtown area. So it's your guys' money. You're going to build what you want to build. I'm just saying that's where my disappointment in being a steward of our downtown comes into play. So that's it. I'm not going to talk anymore.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Yes. Yes,
Come up, please.
you sure can.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Well, I hear what you're saying about what the building might look like. We are willing to work with the Main Street people. We proposed a plan, which I think you're alluding to, that was a drawing of what our bank could look like. That doesn't mean that the exterior of it necessarily will look like that. The bank that we are in today is much larger than we need. It is fraught with problems. Some of the things that aren't even included in there are a glazing solution. The glass on the outside of that building, I think you alluded to this, Nick, leaks and cracks and it contorts, and that glass is 2 stories high. There are ADA non-compliance issues in that building today. There are no restrooms on the first floor in that building today. The restrooms that are in the basement don't comply. We have an elevator that is non-functional, that has a sump pump in the bottom of it. Why that was built that way, I cannot tell you. But when it comes to constructing a new building, it will be energy efficient. It will complement that area down there. We've had some discussions at the last meeting about what the perimeter of that would look like, whether we would be willing to put artwork on that corner and maybe do some fencing that would complement the other parts of downtown. I'm a little perplexed by the challenges here because of what I see, and again, I'm not from El Dorado, but there's a brand new Y a block away. The office next door to us is a contemporary building, and it's my understanding that in close proximity to us, several other buildings have been torn down. When we talk about what's a contributing structure, none of the structures across the street, directly across the street from us, are contributing. If you look at that outline that has been put together, and to the south of us is not contributing, catty-corner from us is not contributing, the one on the other corner is contributing. So Emprise is here. We want to conduct business in El Dorado. We own that land and we're committed to doing something with it. But as Rod said, it's a challenge, and there's so many costs associated with the existing structure, it's problematic. But in terms of what would the new building look like, the plan that you have is our starting point. We have not complete, that's not finalized.
Okay. Well, and understand this, thank you, Brad. It's important that I voiced my opinion. I believe I'm gonna be in the minority tonight with that opinion. I hope that as a business that wants to remain downtown, like we want you to remain downtown, I'm hopeful that you are a good steward of our downtown and what our vision for our downtown is, and work with Main Street. I'm glad that you came up and said that. But if this goes through and you guys tear that building down, you know, I'm really hopeful that you guys are able to work with Main Street to build a building that's more conducive to that look and feel that we're wanting in our downtown. That's all, that's it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We get this packet Friday, and I've worked on this over the weekend. I drove around the building. I know that Mr. Ziegler and I have talked many a times about flooding in this building. And I personally would like to give a big thank you to Emprise Bank for investing in our downtown. That's my biggest thing. That's the biggest investment in District 490 in a long time, is paying taxes. And they're not asking for tax abatements. Now, that's not the issue, but I'm saying that's a big deal to 490 going forward with something like that. When I look at that building, and I go back to, I agree totally with what Nick's saying about the history of that building, and, you know, saying how old the building is it, how it fits, and I know it's on the National Register, but I remember when it was built, and you know, I don't feel as tied to that as I do some of the other buildings as you go north. So that's my personal opinion. My biggest reason would be the flooding part of it. Setting back of the building and opening up the view of the north side of the old Farm and Home building, I think will be a real positive. So as you sit there and you're coming towards downtown from the north, that building was tall enough you couldn't see that, but if you can envision that not being there, I think it's going to enhance the downtown, in my opinion. So 10 years from now, I think we'd be happy we did it. And from me, I want to be sure and tell Emprise thank you. So. Any other comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve case number 15-001-HIS, requesting the demolition of the historic structure at 200 North Main Street be approved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1. We're going to Without Chase here, are we going to be okay with that?
Yeah, it just needed a majority.
Majority? Okay.
And I might add, the next steps in that, Mayor, the Preservation Office will review your minutes and see if you've met the statutes. And then with the bank being federally backed, the Federal Historic Registration Office will then review the case.
Okay.
So we can still be overrid.
Correct.
Overruled.
Okay, we're ready for agenda item number 6, which is application for a special use permit to allow bank drive-through at 200 North Main. Case number 15002, SUP.
You guys don't want us to see if you get your drive-through?
Getting a better view. The view don't get any better.
Yes, Mayor, a special use permit is required for a drive-through bank in the C2 downtown district, and the Planning Commission heard this item at their February 26th meeting and recommended approval.
Is there any discussion on that, commissioners?
Ordinance number?
I'd like to ask one question.
Commissioner Chapin, you got the floor.
Okay, now that the little piece of information has arose after we voted about the overriding of the federal and Kansas Historical Society, our decision,
I'm sorry, what?
I need a little more information on that little part of it.
You guys, the Kansas State, they just review your minutes. You guys make that determination. We did recently learn that the federal government will review this as well, the Federal Historic Office, because the bank is backed by the federal government, the FDIC.
And all that has to be done before they can move one brick, and that could take
I don't know.
6 months,
I really couldn't tell
2
you.
years.
I couldn't tell you, Commissioner, with the federal government, how long it would take. We've already received the Preservation Office recommendation. They told us they'll just review your minutes and then
Okay, so it could be fast, could be 2 years,
I doubt if it's gonna be 2 years, so
federal government.
it could be whatever it is, and that's just part of the process.
I just wanted to kind of get a little bit more clarification on what I discovered.
Ordinance number?
1195.
Is it a G, is it an S, isn't it an S?
G.
When were you gonna tell me that?
Positive?
I move that the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve case number 15-002-SUP requesting a special use permit to allow a banking drive-through in a C2 zoning district, and that ordinance number G1195 be approved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. So this drive-through will have entrances onto Main Street?
It's proposed that way currently. KDOT will have a review in that. KDOT will make final say on the location of driveway, or even if access will be allowed off Main Street.
Will it be a single entrance, or I think you guys have a double entrance? You have separate driveways down there now on Main Street.
I think they have 3 driveways currently, and some staff will work with them along with KDOT.
So we don't know what the plans are, I mean, what the planned drive-through would pertain, if it's gonna be 1 entrance or 3 entrances, or, yeah, I saw that.
I think they have something like a 40-foot driveway.
Okay.
Hi, Justin Graham with SJCF Architecture in Wichita. The proposed site plan would include a 2-way entrance on Main Street south of the building, and then the exit from the drive-through on the north side of the building. There's also an entrance off of First Street to the south towards the east end of the property. It's not much unlike what's there today. There's an exit out of the drive-through.
Right. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
comments, any other discussion, commissioners?
I'm going to say that will get a tremendous amount of scrutiny from an intersection that you routinely say needs a traffic signal because it's dangerous, and especially two more on Main Street. I guess I'm going to say it's going to get a lot of scrutiny. And from what I just heard, yeah, I'll be surprised if KDOT approves that. They're going to want you to be so far from that intersection, and I'll be surprised if two on Main Street.
South of the building.
Yeah, just to clarify, there would be one additional entrance, and it would be further north than the current exit is from the intersection.
Okay.
No, but you put an entrance south of your new building.
Correct. But keep in mind, the new building would be quite a bit further north, at the north end of the property.
All right.
And again, that's up to KDOT review, so
Right.
we'll comply with their reviews.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, we need a roll call on this one.
Commissioner Chapin,
Yes.
Mayor Fag,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Badway.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thanks, fellas.
Okay, we're ready for agenda item number 7, which is an application for special use permit to allow transitional housing at 131 North Star Street. Case number 15003, SUP.
Yes, Mayor. A Butler Homeless Initiative is requesting a special use permit to allow transitional housing at a property located at 131 North Star Street. This property consists of a single-family structure and is currently zoned R3 multifamily dwelling district. The applicant has submitted a management plan with the special use permit application, and staff has reviewed and determined the plan meets the zoning ordinance requirements. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this application February 26th, and the item received a split vote of 4-4, which is considered a failure to recommend and continues to the City Commission for approval or denial.
Okay. This time, we'll open it up for anybody that would like to come forward. Name and address, please.
Melody Galt, 5 Taylor Avenue, Augusta, Kansas. And I do have some pictures of the property to show you. So the property is six bedroom, 2-bath home, 3 bedrooms downstairs and 3 bedrooms upstairs. This is the first floor. This is where you would enter from the street right here. So this is living, dining combination. Kitchen is here. There are 2 bedrooms here that are connected with a small hallway. We have a bathroom, another bedroom back here. And this is the second floor. You come up the stairs here. Here's the bathroom. And then you have 3 good-sized bedrooms upstairs. It's a little, just over 2,000 square feet, the property. And then this is the view from the back. It is our plan to create an ADA accessible entrance from the back of the property. The common space, the 2 front bedrooms, the first level bath would all be accessible. With the current configuration of the home, we believe 2 bunk beds per room would allow 16 individuals, and we could have a 4-person family as well, for a total of 20 persons per night. BHI understands the zoning definition sets a 30-person maximum, and BHI would not exceed that limit. Gravity Works developed this 3D image, and they can answer specific questions for you if you have any about the property itself. BHI is asking that the City Commission approve a special use permit for the operation of Jeremiah's Hope to be located at 131 North Star Street. I hope you've had a chance to look through your packets that we provided. Along with that information, there's a couple of things I'd like to address. A few concerns that have been brought up over the past year or so, and some that were brought up at the Planning Commission. So I think there are a couple of concerns that we definitely want to address again. I understand that neighbors have concerns, and rightly so. No matter where a transitional home would be placed, no matter the socioeconomic climate of the surrounding properties, in the end, everyone is entitled to their concerns, and some are very valid. But I would also ask, are not those who are down on their luck human beings as well? Are they not entitled to some of the same dignities you and I take for granted? As a community, you have BHI, a home-based or a faith-based organization, willing to address the issues of homelessness in El Dorado and Butler County. This essentially allows the city to take credit for finding a solution to an ever-growing demographic. The city can build affordable housing units, which we desperately need, but if the underlying issues of why a person is homeless or living in poverty are not addressed, the city could be faced with the same outcome after families are in affordable housing. Housing itself doesn't necessarily end a cycle of learned behavior. I would also point out that this community already has 2 transitional homes located in El Dorado, the Safe House and Richie's House. The Safe House has operated for over 20 years without incident, and Richie's House just over a year. To further discuss the concerns of safety, I would like to remind the Commission that clients staying at Jeremiah's Hope would be from El Dorado, which means they are already here. We see Jeremiah's Hope as operating as smoothly as both of these very successful transitional homes already located in El Dorado. We also would expect that there would be no decline in property value due to Jeremiah's Hope, just as there have not been declines in property with the addition of the Safe House or Richie's House. With a purchase price of $60,000 and proposed upgrades of over $40,000, the value of the property at 131 North Star will increase. The current county value is only $37,000. We believe with BHI purchasing this property and making the necessary upgrades, the property values in the neighborhood could actually increase rather than decrease. I believe it's time to put a face to those living in poverty. They are human beings just like you and I and deserve a chance to be valued, a chance to see their potential, a chance to see their purpose. BHI would like to be part of that chance. BHI is asking that the City Commission approve a special use permit for the operation of Jeremiah's Hope to be located at 131 North Star. I am available for questions, and Fred Britton is here from Gravity Works and can answer questions about the property specifically. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to come? We will kind of save our questions for her and continue on. Somebody else want to come forward, name and address, and make a comment on this issue?
Good evening. My name is Leon Kane. My family and I live at 8748 Northwest 110th Street, Potwin, here in Butler County. I'm here because I'm the president and owner of River Valley Properties. I own the property at 137 North Star. I want to ask you, this is brand new to me. I've never done anything like this before. I have a letter from Matt Grange that he wanted me to read. Is that a possibility, or does he have to be in attendance to read the letter?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, let me read the letter and then I'll get into my little presentation. Okay. This is from Matt Grange. Leon, did you receive a letter from Butler Homeless Initiative referring to the house they want to buy on North Star? It's the one south of your rental and across the alley from my duplex on West First. It is my understanding they want to buy it, remodel it, and provide temporary housing for folks who need help getting back on their feet. BHI has a big heart, and I understand why they do what they do. However, I am not in favor of having them as a neighbor. I can assure you my current tenants will not be happy either. I had the opportunity last year to provide temporary housing for a young couple that qualified for assistance through BHI.
Through July to October of 2014, I had countless phone calls, text messages from neighbors in the El Dorado Police Department letting me know domestic violence, people fighting in the yard, front door being ripped off, and best of all, a large swastika painted on the side of my house. During that time, the tenants had violated their arrangement with BHI, lost their subsidy for rent, and were no longer BHI's problem. They were now my problem. I finally got them evicted, and as you are aware, it is never an easy task. I am currently in the process of fixing the damage that was done by the young couple. In addition to the repairs, I had to dispose of what was left behind. The couple were involved with identity theft, burglary, mail fraud, and heavy drug use. This couple reputation had preceded them. The El Dorado Police Department knew them on a first-name basis. I have had discussions with BHI about my circumstance and to make suggestions about their future assistance. BHI currently checks a national database shared by other homeless initiatives as a background check on potential tenants. If tenants had a potential problem with other homeless initiative and they relayed info to the database, their names would pop up and be flagged somehow. I do not believe this is the best form of vetting. A call to the local police department would have saved BHI and myself a lot of money and headache. I do not feel it is our best interest to have this home purchased by BHI or used as temporary housing by anyone. As a landlord, we deal with a lot of tenants coming and going. We are lucky now and then to get a tenant that are clean, paying on time, and stay for years. My experience with BHI has only taught me to be more selective of who I sign a lease with. Given the opportunity to vote, whether they become a neighbor, I encourage you to be just as selective as I and say no. Be kind, do good work, and keep in touch. Matt Grange. Okay, thank you. The first thing that I want to tell you this evening is I am a licensed real estate appraiser here in the state of Kansas. My license number is L1571. I've been a real estate appraiser since 1999. I've been in real estate for about 16 years. I've done probably around 8,000 appraisals in Butler County, Sedgwick County, Harvey County. That's my 3 counties that I work with. I specialize in single-family residential homes. That said, I want to emphasize that I did not do an appraisal on my property or any of the properties that I'm going to speak about this evening. That would be very, very unethical, and I would never do that. That said, me being in real estate for 16 years, I've kind of been chosen to come up here and talk to you a little bit, and I'm going to talk to you about value. I disagree very strongly with Melanie just said that this property would have no impact on property values. I have spoken with a couple other appraisers about this and a couple other real estate professionals, and we want to talk a little bit about what they said and what I think. One of them was here actually that lives in town, and we all agree that this could very well hurt our property values in the 100 block of North Star and across the alley in the 100 block of North Washington. There, I believe, is 5 properties there that have alley access. 2 of them have nice three-car garages. I've taken photos for, I can give the photos to you, that have alley access. How much it's going to hurt our values, we really don't know. You know, we've talked about that, and only time will tell. However, with my experience and knowledge, maybe I can give you an idea. Like I said, I've kind of been chosen to speak. I'm going to talk to you about 2 properties on Star, 1 on First Street, and 5 on Washington. We believe will have a direct impact if you grant this special permit. If we decide to sell our properties, these 8 that I'm talking about, we believe it would have somewhat similar, we believe it would be somewhat similar to our property selling as a foreclosed property. In other words, the Butler County Appraiser's Office does not recognize foreclosed properties as an arm's length sale. They are somewhat distressed. There's not exactly a willing buyer and a willing seller. We believe having a homeless shelter would severely limit our potential buyers. Now I'm going to talk about my property just a little bit so I can
start talking about value a little bit. My property located at 137 North Star, sold as a valid arm's length sale on August the 19th, 2008 for $76,000. It was exposed to the market for 159 days. It had good exposure time, a few days over 5 months. Then, a couple years later, it went into foreclosure. I purchased my property as a HUD foreclosed property on October the 26th, 2010 for $27,500. It was exposed to the market 97 days. Since that time, I have completely remodeled the property. I put in a new furnace and air conditioner. I've completely remodeled the kitchen and bath, installed new flooring. The kitchen has new sink, faucet, bathroom, new sink, faucet, vanity, toilet. I've replaced all the lighting with new ceiling fans in every room. And I've painted the interior decor to update it. Based on that information, I believe my property would sell for at least $76,000 like it did in 2008. I would hope so, you know. Now, I know Melody indicated a little bit about, I don't know if she's got a contract on 131 North Star for $60,000, but I called the number on the sign when I was going through and making my presentation. The gentleman told me the property is for sale for $72,000. So I'm kind of keeping that in the back of your mind as I speak. That property is for sale for $72,000. It's inferior to mine. My research found it doesn't have central heating and air. It has a full furnace, window air conditioner, lath and plaster. Appears to have no insulation and some knob and tube wiring. So I believe my property is superior to this property. The property on the other side of mine, which is 143 North Star, is owned by Kathy Boone, and she's in the audience this evening, and I believe she's going to come up here and speak a little bit too. She listed her property with a realtor on August the 29th of 2014 for $95,000. Now her property is around 2,400 square foot. It's superior to mine, it's bigger than mine. So based upon her listing and a realtor probably did a market analysis on it, the family agreed to this listing price. She's probably looking at hopefully selling her property for around $90,000. So you got one that's a little inferior for listed for $72,000, this one on the other side of me for $90,000. I think I could sell mine for $76,000. I hope that I could. Based upon this information, if you grant the special use permit, I believe my property value will plummet to around $27,500, the price I paid for it as a foreclosed property. It will become a distressed property. I have renters in there now that have 3 children. If this special permit is allowed, they will move. They're gone. There's no doubt about it. They're not going to have their family live next to a homeless shelter. My property is a 3-bedroom house. It's made for family. I will lose approximately $48,500 in equity. I ask you, who would want to purchase a property as a family living right next to a homeless shelter? And I have major concerns as a landlord. I have 5 properties in town. I've completely remodeled them all. I'm a good landlord. I try to keep my tenants. If this property comes next to mine, I'm not so sure I can rent it. I don't know. Time will tell. I mean, if the price is low enough, yeah, you can rent it if it's $100, $200, but it's made for a family. It's 3-bedroom. What if it becomes vacant? And what if some windows get broke? And I have to fix the windows and it stays vacant? That's a problem for me. Now, I don't want to steal Kathy Boone's thunder. She can come up here and talk to you, but she had her property for sale. Was thinking about retiring and using their $90,000 in equity to move, to buy another property. There's a good possibility she can lose half her equity. How do you think she feels? At the public hearing held on February the 26th, we learned that BHI won't allow smoking inside the house. Those who smoke will be loitering outside and possibly in the alley to the rear. There are 6 other properties now that I want to talk to you about that will be directly affected by this homeless shelter. They're 315 West First. It's right there, right by the alley on First Street. There's 142 North Washington, which, by the way, is currently for sale. The owner is Arkansas. He cannot be here this evening. There's 126 North Washington and 122 North Washington. Both of those have a beautiful 3-car garage. Here's a picture of it. Alley access. It is directly behind 131 North Star. I don't know if these homeowners are here this evening. I think I saw one. He can come in here and talk to you about it. But these properties will be directly affected. Also, 118 and 112 North Washington. So we got 5 properties right there on that alley that'll be directly affected. I feel that a special use permit for 131 North Star will take approximately $30,000 to $50,000 out of our pocket for these 8 houses. And as you know, under Kansas law, if we sell our houses with a direct effect on a homeless shelter, it'll have to be disclosed. And I'm not so sure that we're going to have a lot of buyers if that happens. Also, I wanted to mention, and I think somebody from the Carriage House is here this evening. The Carriage House is right up the alley. They don't have enclosed parking. They're elderly people. They have carports. I took the opportunity to walk from the edge, the southwest corner of 131 North Star to the first carport. It took me 45 seconds. My wife timed me. That's very close. And I think they're going to be coming to talk to you a little bit about parking and the concerns that they have. Now, I'm going to try to wrap this up as much as I can here. I'm going to be real brief in the closing that I have here. I have bought 17 properties in the last 8 years and remodeled every single one of them. One of them that I remodeled is very similar to the property at 131 North Star. It's in Whitewater. It had floor furnace, no AC, lath and plaster, which has no insulation. Basically needed to be completely gutted and remodeled. I talked to a gentleman that looked at this property, was thinking about buying it. He said there's 2 floor furnaces, there's a window air conditioner, it's lath and plaster. He doesn't think there's insulation, there's knob and tube wiring. To get this property up to code and to standards, there's going to be a lot of work. And I'm going to be brief on this. The property in Whitewater that I remodeled was built in 1880, has 1,104 square foot. I spent $53,000 remodeling this property, and it's real nice. Central heating and air, everything on the inside is new. That equals $48 a square foot. I disagree with Melanie that they're going to be spending $40,000. She said there was 2,000 square foot in that house. I'm using county information right now. That county has approximately 1,822 square foot per the Butler County Appraiser's Office. If you take that times $48 a square foot, which I used, which I spent on my property, and by the way, I did a lot of the work myself. I gutted it myself. Gutting a lath and plaster house is labor intense. You take a sledgehammer and axe handle and you gut the wall. You have to literally pick up the wood by hand, carry it out to the dumpster. You get to a point where you can pick up the plaster with a scoop shovel into the wheelbarrow and you wheel it out into the dumpster. It's labor intense. And if they're going to hire that done, I would say that's probably going to cost, a 2,000 square foot house is probably going to cost somewhere around $20,000. So based upon that information, if you take 1,822 square foot, times $48 a square foot to remodel it, get it up to code, that would be $87,456. Now, she told us this evening, I thought they was going to buy it for $72. That's what I was told when I called, but she said they was going to buy it for $60. So you're looking at approximately, give or take, $150,000 that's going to be spent on this property. And actually, I think there's going to be spent a little bit more. If they're going to concrete the backyard for parking, I didn't include that in there. As we all know, concrete is very expensive. So I think $150,000 could be conservative. And while we're talking about parking, I called the Butler County Appraiser's Office. The lot size is 34 foot wide. There is parking for 2 in the front of the property. This would allow for 2 in the back of the property. There would be parking for 4 vehicles, unless you tandem park, and that don't really count, because if you tandem park, somebody would have to leave the house to go back out one of the cars so one of the ones in front could leave. Now, if you have up to 20 people living there, in my research about homeless people, we all know some of them live in cars. I found out it looks like approximately 3 in 10 have cars. You're looking at possibly 6 cars that are going to need parking. And that doesn't account anybody who's living there or helping and volunteering or guests. There is any point in time, there could be 8 to 10 cars needing to park at this property. And so where are they going to park? And I can tell you where they're going to park. They're going to park in that church parking lot. And I think there's somebody from the church that has a major problem with that. And if they don't park in the church parking lot, they can park in the alley. And if they park in the alley, what happens if a fire truck needs to get that alley, up and down that alley and can't? That's a problem also. So what I'm saying is this, with them spending $150,000, with my experience in real estate, my suggestion is this, simple. The city of El Dorado could possibly have a site somewhere that maybe you could even donate. If you're going to spend $150,000, why not control your site, pick a site, and build new? And build in an area where it is not right next to property, to residential homes that are going to drive out families. Put it in a place somewhere in town that is maybe a block or two or even further from a house. You can build brand new. And you could have enough for parking, a fenced backyard, a playground for children, and maybe even a garden. So, in closing, I want to ask you, based on the information I just presented, we don't think 131 North Star is the right location for this property. I'm asking you to vote no on this special use permit for transitional housing based on our property value going down 30 to 50,000. And by the way, that would also hurt your tax base. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for letting me speak.
My name is Christina Young. I reside currently in Wichita, Kansas. I am a licensed master's level social worker and the community service coordinator for El Dorado and all of Butler County through Mid-Kansas Community Action Program, often referred to as MidCap. MidCap has been serving Butler County since 1967. We provide supporting housing, also known as transitional housing, in Butler County with the majority of our customers in El Dorado. Currently, El Dorado has 7 homeless individuals and families housed in transitional housing. Some of these customers are within 3 blocks of 131 North Star Street, the proposed site for the transitional house. 4 El Dorado homeless individuals and families are on the waiting list for supportive housing. These individuals could benefit from BHI's Jeremiah's Hope. Transitional housing, supportive housing, is a continued need in El Dorado. MidCap is unable to provide for all the transitional housing and therefore supports transitional housing at 131 North Star.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sonia Milborn. I live at 121 North Emporia. I'm nearly a lifelong resident of El Dorado, 50-some years. And first of all, I want to just have everyone take a moment to acknowledge that they will go home tonight. They'll unlock a door, they'll lock it behind them, they'll go to bed, and they'll lay their head on a pillow. Hold that thought. I was here nearly a year ago. It feels like deja vu. I'm trying to recycle my thoughts. They're the same. And that is that when we refer to a transitional housing, not homeless shelter, transitional housing with supportive services and programs to help people identify why they found themselves in this situation of being without shelter, what their needs are that can move them beyond that. Someone I visited with this past week had a very good point, and I agree completely. Feed a child a fish for a day, teach a child to fish, feed them for a lifetime. We're talking about children, not a halfway house for drug addicts. I'm not saying that that's not needed in El Dorado, believe me, but I am talking about children and talking about how many steps it takes to leave those children. We're talking about El Dorado City or El Dorado Lake. My husband and I said this a year ago when we were doing the same thing. Then on one of the windiest, coldest nights in October, we decided to do some survival camping out at the lake. And we were told by the camp host that at any given night, he has homeless families living in tents in Boulder Bluff area where we were. And he told us that the tent just around the corner from us, one of those little large pup tents, little dome tents, was housing a family with 3 under school age children. and our tent was being whipped. We knew that we could get in our truck and go back to El Dorado and have the safety and security of our home. But I ended up teaching, I'm retired now, I went to my class after that, and was pretty shaken to think that during the night I was living with this tent whipping around me, and this was life for these children. This is what's going on in El Dorado. We can continue to close our eyes to, I'm not. I can go to bed at night knowing that I have stated a case for people, the least of these. And we're talking about children. Melody and I spoke a week ago, and she made a very good point. Despite what you might have in the way of judgments or disagreeing with people's choices that got them into the situation they're in, we're talking about children. We are talking about children. I helped start the Safe House as a volunteer effort. We dealt with the same challenges by the community. It's going to lower our property values. You're going to bring in these people from somewhere else. You're going to bring violence into El Dorado. It didn't happen. These are fears we're talking about. Go ahead and found them in some facts and data. What I have known for the past 25 years is they're not based in fact. Not violence brought in because of the Safe House and the clientele there, and not lower property values. I have never heard that an issue in that community on Washington. So I sat there and listened to just discussing this as if these are derelict people that we're talking. Derelicts deserve a second chance too, but that's not what we're talking about, children as well. Clifford Stone is a man that I long admired for his countless philanthropic gifts to our community. We shared a lot of conversations about books. He had an obvious love and respect for our community, and it shows in many ways. For many years, he gave several rooms above the building that he owned to the north of the Coots Museum for Art for the shelter of indigent men in our community. Now, that's unbeknownst to a lot of people. It became known to me when I began renting that about 10 years ago as studio space. I rent out a couple of the rooms for art studio. There's not a time that I go up there, especially in horrific weather, and when it's cold, and I can fire that furnace up, and I think about those men that, because Mr. Stone had shelter for many years. Until the last one died, he assured that that was all that building was for. He had the front part of it for his own kind of office space. But when the last man died, that's when they gave that space up for artists and writers to use as space. In closing, I just want to say again that I grew up in El Dorado. I know and love this community. I know its character, it's compassionate. One day, El Dorado will have transitional housing, I promise you. I have no doubt about that. The question is not if, it's when. And wouldn't it be a legacy for your commission to be the commission that took leadership and addressed it not as a problem, but as an issue, and dealt with it in a long-term fashion? And that's the kind of character I think El Dorado has. And I encourage you to vote yes for this proposition. Thank you.
Hello.
Name and address, Steve.
My name is Steve Carmichael, and I've lived in El Dorado for 60 years. I bought my house in 1989, have lived at 122 North Washington for the last 26 years. I am here tonight to give my objections to the proposal of BHI. They're wanting to change the dynamics of my neighborhood that I live in with their homeless shelter agenda. I live in one of the closest houses to this property. I was taught a long time ago that you buy a house, you raise your kids, and live the American dream. Over the last 26 years, I have seen my county appraisals for the value of my house go up substantially, and my real estate taxes go up along with it. This brings me to my first objection to the proposal. I have contacted a real estate company, and found out a few things about the value of the homes in the neighborhood. If this proposal is voted in, first off, the county's value will not go down because they need the taxes. Where the value will change is when you try to sell, and I do mean try. It would be awfully hard to sell a house right beside a homeless shelter. It was my understanding to sell a house with it being this close to the property. You would lose at least 50% of its value if you could find a buyer. Even living 2 to 3 blocks away will lose 20 to 30%. For most people, their home is their largest asset. In the next few years, due to health reasons, my wife and I may have to change our living accommodations, and we will need all the value of our home, not 50% less, even if we could find a buyer. The next concern I have is the safety issue. These are many reasons that people become homeless. The ones that are high on the list would be drug addiction, alcohol addiction, mental illness, and being released from jail. The one reason that most people think of and would want to help the most is families that have been evicted because of some hard luck event. Illness, the breadwinner, unexpected medical bills, loss of their job, etc. Looking at this mix of people living together, it looks like a disaster waiting to happen. I wouldn't want mothers and children living with the people I listed first. My main concerns are for my property and other homes that are closest to this property. Most addicts end up stealing to sustain their addiction. My wife, Becky, is scared to death that we're going to have our house burglarized. She wanted to come to this meeting tonight, but due to her cancer chemotherapy medication and the side effects that are keeping her home. If this is passed, we have already decided to add enough motion detector lights that it would turn night to day, plus adding a security system. This would also put a burden on our financial situation, adding this protection. In closing, I would never have believed in 1,000 years I would be up here begging for you guys to vote against this proposal. This would essentially have the closest homes donating 50% of their home's value to this proposal, and to have people living afraid in their own homes. The one thing I can't figure out is why Butler County Initiative and their understanding that helping people that they're talking about would destroy our neighborhood and hurt the people living there. I would like to make the recommendation to the BHI Initiative Group. Instead of wasting all your money in buying this house and paying taxes and insurance and paying a lot to renovate, buying a van like they said they was going to, hiring paid staff, buying liability insurance because they'll need that, and eliciting all the volunteers that they will need, since we are all concerned of the families being homeless, I believe it'd be better to stop families from becoming homeless. Would it not be better to help families that are on the verge of being evicted with a little rent money for a couple of months so they could get back on their feet and will not become homeless? This seems like a better idea to me. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Good evening. Rob Lane, I live at 720 Meadow here in El Dorado. I have not been a resident my entire life, but certainly have been since I was a child and consider this my home. I'm also a business owner at 116 North Star, which is probably, I would imagine, more reason than any why I'm speaking tonight. Unfortunately, I put some stuff together over the weekend as well, and so it's not as organized as I would like. And I was making some notes as other people spoke prior to me. And the first note that I have here says, there was a statement that was made that was basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm probably pretty close. El Dorado will have transitional housing. As a resident, as a El Dorado High School graduate, as a business owner in this community, that statement was perhaps to me more disheartening than anything else. I think the statement reflects attacking the wrong issue and essentially acknowledging a need that I just don't believe is there, and that we should fight tooth and nail to prevent it from getting there. Earlier, in a completely different issue, I think the gentleman from El Dorado Main Street had your comprehensive plan and was basically citing from it, which was encouraging because I was afraid that I was going to be the only person that actually looked at the comprehensive plan prior to tonight's meeting. I actually reviewed it, printed it off, read it. It's very long, by the way, very detailed. But I think that I'm asking the commission to not approve this project for three primary reasons. Number one, frankly, it's just not contemplated in your comprehensive plan that was adopted, that obviously was countless hours that were put into with regard to a vision for this city. Number two, I think the potential benefit to the community, just using simple mathematics, is far outweighed by the certain detriment that I think other people have spoken about. And number three, the project itself, and I think it's very admirable. I think it's very well-meaning, but as is kind of already been touched on, is somewhat duplicative and is not really indicative of the general direction that I would hope that all of you would want. Number one, the 2030 Comprehensive Plan of El Dorado, and I apologize if there's an updated one, but this is the most recent one that was on the website, and unfortunately I did most of my research on websites in this day and age, which certainly is new to me. A couple of different quotes that I pulled from the comprehensive plan. Planned growth makes the community's land use more efficient, decreases infrastructure and service costs, improves the business climate, promotes attractive housing, sustains a strong tax base, and improves the quality of life. The next quote is, the foundation of planning is to promote the good of the public. No planning effort, however, can provide for the general public good and at the same time accommodate all individual interests. There is a fine line between the two, and each community must decide for itself the proper balance. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that you're firmly right on that line as far as your decision-making tonight. The last quote, though, in the end, what is best for the community as a whole must be the basis upon which land use decisions are made. And so I think that you're directed, at least, hopefully directed, at least by your own comprehensive plan, that what's best for the community as a whole is primarily the basis upon which you're to make decisions. I read through the comprehensive plan, and the vision, which is created in section 2, identifies a number of different goals. The first part was a number of different areas that perhaps the planning builder, so to speak, wanted addressed. I couldn't find the words transitional housing. I couldn't find the words homeless shelter. You say tomato, somebody else says tomato. I couldn't find anything with regard to that being addressed in the comprehensive plan. I can only assume that at the time that the comprehensive plan was drafted, that it simply wasn't a concern, or at least certainly not enough of a concern for it to make it into the literature of the plan. There were other goals, however, that were indicated with regard to housing, to revitalize existing residential areas in needs of improvement. There were different strategies for that. To increase and improve the supply of quality residential rental properties also was of note in your comprehensive plan. There were strategies left for that. To increase the supply of buildable lots and to meet the special housing needs of our current and future residents. I thought perhaps this might be interpreted to maybe address transitional housing or homeless shelters, whichever. However, there was some specific language in there that indicated meet the special housing needs of current or future residents for residents who are physically and mentally challenged, recovering from substance abuse, and victims of domestic violence, which, as has been stated, essentially you already have services for. You have the Safe House, you have the South Central Mental Health Center. So those needs, as far as your comprehensive plan, are already being addressed. And so there's no, once again, there's simply just nothing in your comprehensive plan that directly, or even perhaps probably indirectly, references to transitional housing. Secondly, and this is where I'll start with an apology. Unfortunately for BHI, I pulled up their website too, which is excellent, by the way. But one of the things on their website is essentially that they estimated that there were approximately 150 homeless persons in Butler County. As near as I could tell, that was an unsighted estimate, obviously, and it seemed to have been from pursuant to some interview that you can play on their website. But let's assume for the sake of argument that the 150 number is accurate for the county. Your 2030 comprehensive plan was also very informative with regard to populations for both the city as well as the county. So essentially, I'm using numbers that were adopted in the comprehensive plan or that BHI adopts themselves. The long and the short of it is, if we assume that there are 150 homeless persons in Butler County, and that the plan survey, projected residents and populations for both the city as well as the county for 2010 and 2020, basically on a straight line projection. And so I've essentially averaged the 2010 and 2020 estimates to bring us to 2015 for my approximation. Essentially, the number of residents for the county for approximately 2015 would be 67,439. 150 homeless persons out of 67,439 means, if you grant those numbers any credence, the homeless population represents 0.002% of the population. That's 2 zeros before you actually get to a number. And 0.0011 of the city's population. I think that the mathematics certainly support the notion that, excuse me, I made another note here, so let me look at it, because I put some quotes around it. The issue of homelessness, I would respectfully disagree that there is an issue whatsoever. Those percentages simply don't bear that out. The plan, at least the plan that was on the BHI website, called for housing of approximately 15 people to start, with an increase. I think tonight the number was 20, I think is what I heard earlier. So I apologize again, because my math, and I'm not smart enough to do math on the fly, so I did it in advance. My math is based upon the 15 people being housed. If the facility houses 15 people, that figure is 0.0002% of the county's population. 4 zeros. Excuse me, 3 zeros and a 2. And 0.0011% of the city's population. Arguably, you'd be serving the community better by getting everybody here in front of me at Diet Coke right now. The project simply does not meet community interests because there is no need. Just simple mathematics alone. The website, as I said, was good, but essentially it supports a logic stream of homelessness equals hopelessness equals addiction equals criminal activity. I'm going to assume, and it's a catchy stream for sure, I'm going to assume that this logic stream is meant to show you that basically by approving this project, if you were to approve it, that you will decrease hopelessness by decreasing homelessness, and as a result, you'll decrease addiction and decrease criminal activity. Well, other than the occasional criminal defense attorney who's not against decreasing criminal activity. Fact of the matter is, though, if you assume, again, the unsighted 150-person homeless number, and if you assume that every person of the 150 is going to commit a crime because they're homeless, and if you were to assume that the BHI project solves all 150 crimes, if not more, you're now decreasing criminal activity in 0.002% of your city. Again, the mathematics simply don't play out with regard to this being an issue of any substantial, significant, any tangible benefit whatsoever. And as has been stated previously, and as I essentially opened with, you're weighing costs and benefits here. That's your gig. When you've got a scenario where one side of the scale is really little to no benefit, I'm talking about 0.002% benefit, and the other side is thousands and thousands of dollars of decrease in values, if you were to give credence to that argument. I think that the answer is relatively simple. That's just in today's dollars. Now, I'm not an appraiser. I do not have any real understanding of how appraisers get to the numbers that they get to oftentimes. But I'll tell you, in my world, with regard to value, nothing really has a value until it sells. And you can say your home or your business is worth X number of dollars or Y number of dollars, and obviously that's necessary for tax purposes and other reasons. But until you're able to sell it, you are never going to be 100% sure what value that holds. And I cannot, and essentially on some levels, I'm in sales for a living too. I cannot think of an argument that I could possibly make for any homeowner, business owner, any entity that's in close proximity to, and I'll just stipulate to calling it transitional housing, that says this promotes sales of anything. This promotes progress. I think for the Emprise Bank issue, there was a word that I wrote down that was essentially, the issue was what is contributing to this community, and in what ways can different projects contribute. I cannot think of a plan, I cannot think of a sales pitch, if you will, that says to all of the surrounding entities that a transitional housing promotes anything. It does not promote, certainly I cannot see that it promotes anybody wanting to invest in a house to remodel if you're a landlord. If they have a strong belief that they cannot sell that house at some point in the future, whenever it's their time to retire. Certainly I cannot see that it promotes John Q. Citizen, who's a homeowner that at some point would like to sell the house and retire. Certainly I cannot personally say that it promotes essentially the sale of any even business building, essentially, because guess what? There's transitional housing. There's no, in that location, in the confluence of entities that are around there, I just cannot, I could not come up with anything that contributes to as far as the community as a whole. Lastly, and this has kind of been hit on a little bit, so I'm going to move through it rather quickly. I just, essentially the project itself, and again, I'm sure it's argued in certain circles that I'm lacking of compassion and lacking of a heart in areas just from my profession alone. However, I've spent time in this community in volunteer projects and volunteer boards and so forth, as well as contributed a number of different ways, both myself and my family certainly. So I don't think that anyone that's perhaps asked this commission to deny this request is suggesting that these persons are not humans, and I think that was an argument that was made, that these people are human too, and that essentially we have an obligation in this particular matter to reach inside and consider our humanity in helping them. I don't, at least for me personally, I don't think that's what I'm suggesting by any stretch of the imagination. I sincerely doubt that anybody that's spoken against this project would suggest that anybody who's homeless is not human either. And it's easy, I guess, to pull on that heartstring as far as to get whatever project is presented some support. However, in this particular case, there are, the BHI literature suggests that a length of stay in this particular, should this be approved, would be, I think if their stay is longer than 3 days, then they'll need to agree to what's called an activity path. I'm putting quotes around the words activity path. I'm not familiar, I'll just confess up front, I'm not familiar with what exactly that meeting would entail, and that they would, I'm assuming it's part of the evaluation to identify the root problem of homelessness, and that if they'll be subject to periodic reviews in 30 days, 60 days, or 4 months or longer, if they're subject to the board approval, and that essentially, from what I understand that's being proposed today, is that the BHI's really goal is to, help people and help solve how they got to the position that they got in, and that's great. And I'm going to assume that the root problems it's not a secret. I mean, on some levels, We all see it in different areas, but drug addiction, joblessness, domestic disputes, or sometimes it's just something as simple as just getting behind on bills for a period of time. As has been addressed, essentially, as I'm sure that you're aware, there are already entities in this community that address joblessness, that address victims of domestic dispute, that address drug addiction or alcohol addiction, and do so at a very, very, very low cost. Obviously, these are good services for this community. Obviously, they are positive and can be positive. As has been said by the representative from MidCap, there's obviously also areas in assisting with a version of transitional housing, or at least assistance in that housing. The only real new thing that I guess I can see BHI is bringing to the table here is basically a location, kind of a centralized location for 15 to 20 persons to essentially, I guess, have shelter for as far as receiving these services. However, I'm not at least familiar with the activity plan, if you will, or at least the identification of the root problem and how that actually works. Unfortunately, I will again respectfully disagree with regard to the level, I guess, of obligation that you or I have, or anyone with regard to this. I think that crime oftentimes is a choice. Not all the time, but oftentimes is a choice, and at the root level, it comes down to whether or not it's going to better, whether or not the risk is really involved with regard to making this bad decision. And unfortunately, I think that also a lot of times bad decisions are essentially in someone's decision-making paradigm. You can directly attribute that to a lot of different issues that any community might face. And I would suggest that it's difficult, if not impossible, to solve a lot of persons' decision-making paradigm with an activity path in the first 3 days of the BHI homeless transitional stay to fix the problem. It's more than that. And so I respectfully, I think if you take that into consideration, that essentially what's being provided here is a roof, which is very important. But unfortunately, that roof affects my roof and your roof and other roofs exponentially, whether it's businesses or homes. And the standard, which I think that you're obligated to consider, just simply does not support this project. Lastly, I'm going to transition back to the statement that we will have transitional housing. This may be harsh, this may be crass even. I don't want to be a member of a community that says, welcome homeless. I don't. If we want to provide transitional housing, that's fantastic. Essentially, and I think it's an important thing to do. But I think what this potential program is essentially an advertisement. And like I said, unfortunately, I think it's going the wrong direction of a downward spiral and somewhat of a white flag. You can provide the services, you can provide assistance that you want, but I think with the combination of the negative effects versus very, very, very little benefit to the general population, I don't believe that this is something that should be approved, and I would ask you to not vote to approve it. Thank you.
Commissioner, you have to get on the back. We can table this if you want to.
John Harms, 1815 Quail Run. I'm the president of the Ministerial Alliance. I have a letter signed by 13 pastors. If you want it, I'll read that. In deference to Mr. Young, do you want to just put a time limit on us from now on? I mean, some of these are getting long-winded, just being honest.
Yeah, whatever. I just want to get through this tonight. We've been kicking this can down the road for 3.5 years.
Yeah, okay. Well, whatever you all want to set, you're in charge here, so you tell me and I'll respect it.
Commissioners, what do you think about that? 5 minutes?
Well, if you can go in 5 minutes, we probably should have done that at the beginning, but.
Let's keep going and see what happens.
Okay.
If we need to, we will.
Well, my initial comment was just simply this. I don't see, the point of BHI is to meet a need. And so I don't feel that, in response to the previous speaker, that having a transitional housing is adding to the homeless problem any more than having defense lawyers is adding to the crime in our community. They're just simply meeting a need. Okay. And secondly, as far as meeting needs, I remember back several years ago reading a Chicken Soup for the Soul, and there was a gentleman that was walking down the beach just littered with seashells, and he was taking those mollusks and those seashells and tossing them back in the ocean. And this gentleman came along and said, "What are you doing? Look, there's miles of shells ahead of you that you're not going to be able to possibly, throw back into the sea and save them. You're not going to make a difference to the grand scheme of things." And he picked up one and he threw it back in the ocean and said, "I made a difference to that one." And the point is this: they're here to try and make a difference in a legitimate way to people, to provide a plan of action for them to get the help that they need. I personally have church members who were living in tents because they were homeless there at the park. And as a direct result of what BHI was able to do, they were able to establish them a permanent residence. So now they have jobs and are contributing to our community as a direct result of what BHI is doing. So that's a wonderful testimony. Are there some rotten eggs? Certainly. There's rotten eggs everywhere. All right? There's rotten pastors. I've met them. Anyway, so the point is this. BHI is here to meet a need, not increase demand, but simply meet a need. They have a plan of action, and if anybody takes the time to ask them what that plan of action is, then they articulate it very well. And of course, in respect to the homeowners, I can understand their concern for home values. That's legitimate. But as a pastor, I think, for me, the spiritual impact, the kingdom impact in a ministry need and meeting legitimate, tangible needs and providing for them offsets any financial that may be incurred. But again, I can understand having a difference of opinion upon that. Again, I'll just end it there, but thank you for your time, and we appreciate your service.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Pastor.
Chris McGathy, 924 North Topeka. I just want to say that I'm in favor of this, and there's homeless people that not just pass through El Dorado, but like he said, live here. And I know this because I've lived here over 6 years, and I've given them rides. I've invited them into my home to feed them, to give them clothes. I've even paid for hotels for them. And when I paid for the hotels for them, not once did I ever receive a phone call or ever get charged for them trashing the hotel. Not once. And I've done it multiple times. You could see them walking down the street. You just listen to their stories. This is a place for them not only to get back up on their feet, but to also find God's grace in it. And that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephen Walker, 911 West 3rd. I moved here in July, and I left my wife and two kids at the time. Now we have 3. And I left them up north so that I could come down here and find work. But I did it prematurely. I didn't have a place to live. And I was living in my truck, and I came across the Butler Homeless Initiative, and they helped me out. They were able to just help me get into a place and be able to stand on my feet. And now we just moved into a 3-bedroom house, and I got a job at Subaru Wichita, and I'm a taxpayer, and I'm making a contribution to the community. And to rob anybody of that, I think would just be silly. And these homeless people, they're not animals. We can't talk about them like they're pit bulls or something, like they're dangerous. Some of them may be dangerous.
We allow those.
Right. But I just think to say that all of them are bad, that's wrong. And to say that I didn't have it, that I couldn't have a chance, I'd be upset with that. My family and I deserve that. Whether I was homeless because we made bad financial decisions or not, we still deserve a chance. And so I vote for yes. I'd say this should pass. Thank you.
Welcome to El Dorado.
Thank you.
I'm Debbie Work, and I live at 1210 South Topeka in El Dorado. There's a couple things that I wanted to address, and I think y'all do have an obligation to the citizens of this community who are homeowners. I also think you have an obligation to the citizens of this community that are homeless. They're not criminals simply because they're homeless. That's not, as far as I know, against the law right now. It's not that they're a criminal, it's a travesty. You've heard MidCap, one of our social services here in El Dorado, say that there are people on the waiting list here today, 4 families, I believe they said, that are on a waiting list trying to find housing. Those 4 count, and that we do have an obligation to help them where we can. This is not a long-term shelter that Butler Homeless Initiative is suggesting come here. It is transitional housing. They use a program called Rapid Rehousing that is set up by the federal government. In this program, one of the things that if you're homeless and you're living in someone's garage, or if you have 4 families living in a 2-bedroom house, you're not considered homeless and you don't meet the standards to get into this rapid rehousing program. One night in a transitional shelter, in a homeless shelter, does qualify you for that program. This program is a grant program that Butler Homeless Initiative has been operating under for several years. I don't know all the details of it. What little I do know of it is a program where people are evaluated and they are moved on into their own home, not into a transitional shelter, but that would qualify them for that. That would get them out of living in a garage when it's 10 degrees. It would get them out of living in a tent and would provide the resources to do this type of thing, to move them into the success story that the last man just told you about. The program's already here. Butler's Homeless Initiative is already operational. What they're asking for in this transitional housing situation is to have people there for a few days, and maybe a few weeks, could go on to a few months, but it's not to live there forever and ever in that type of situation. As far as being a real estate agent, I am. The average time on the market right now is 3.7 months in El Dorado, and that information is accurate as of today, and it's very mathematical. Would it affect the ability to sell the house right next to it? Probably. I'd say so. But if you're priced right, and for where you are, you're going to sell your house right now. 3.7 months is not a long time. We're actually way ahead of the national standard on how long your house will be on the market statistically in El Dorado. I know we owe to the people that own homes in that area. We also owe to the people who would like to be homes and be community members in this town, in this county, who do exist here. They're here, and we need to help them, and I hope you vote for us to do that.
Hi, I'm short, so I don't know if you can see me or not. What do I do with this? Okay. My name is Alana Young, and I was recently homeless, and I was helped by the Butler Homeless Initiative. I'm a grandmother, I'm a taxpayer, and I woke up one morning and I had something wrong with me and I couldn't go to work to my job. Through my life, I've worked hard my whole life. Sometimes I've worked 3 jobs as a single mother to raise my children. I'm not a lazy person, and I might be from Mars, I don't know, but I think I'm human. I don't know, that was discussed earlier, but I think I am. And I just wanted to say that if they need volunteers at this place and it's voted in, I would be glad to help them. I'm not ashamed that I was homeless. Good people, bad things happen to good people. I'm a Christian. I go to church every Sunday that I can get to church, that I have a way to get there. When I don't, I pray to God every day and hope that things will be better the next day, because that's all any of us have. Today is all that any of us have. Nothing is guaranteed for tomorrow. One of you could have something wrong with you tomorrow, and maybe you wouldn't have your home. I didn't have a place to live by the time, because I lost my home because I wasn't able to work, my apartment. And the Butler Initiatives have helped me find a place to live, and I'm doing good now, and I'm on my way up, not on my way down. Even though I'm pretty short, I'm still on my way up. And I wanted to thank all the people that came here tonight, whatever their position, because this is America, and I love America first over anything else. I'm an American, you know. I love my country. That's the most important thing to me. And whatever else we decide tonight, we're still all Americans, and we're still here to be free. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can you state your name one more time, please?
I'm sorry. I have a paralysis in my face, so it's
Yes, ma'am.
hard for me to speak. Alana Young.
Thank you.
Did you need an address?
Please.
924 South Summit Street, El Dorado, Kansas.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Kathy Long. I live at 123 North Washington Street in El Dorado. I'm here tonight to urge you to vote no on the BHI request. I've lived for 35 years, one block directly west of the property under consideration tonight, and I have a vested interest in the neighborhood. It's not a good choice for a homeless shelter for the following reasons. Number one and foremost, it is inadequate and unsafe for children. There is no place to play outdoors, and from the schematic drawing I saw, there's very little space inside. The backyard is to be made into a parking lot, and the front yard is about the size of an area rug. The nearest park is across Central, and there's no traffic light or crosswalk at Central and Star. It's an 8-block walk to Lincoln School, which is doable, but that only houses children in 3rd to 5th grade. Younger children attend Jefferson, and they ride a transfer bus. Plus, if you check the registered sex offender list, you will find that that is also a safety risk to children in that neighborhood. Number two, it's unreasonable to believe that 20 people could reside peacefully in a structure this size. It's not a large house. Smoking is to be done outdoors, which in this case would probably be the front porch. It's very visible and potentially could be very smoky. Number three, with the exception of the hospital, all of the properties to the north and the west for blocks are residential. Frankly, we are dealing already with some degree of neighborhood blight. Many of us are trying to maintain the quality of an older area of town. Transitional housing will compound the problem of declining property values. Lastly, I could ask each one of you, would you buy or rent a home next door, in the same block, in the same neighborhood as a homeless shelter? If you can't honestly say yes, then it's only fair to us property owners to vote no. Thank you.
My name is Crystal Wallace. I live at 515 North Washington. I do live in the same neighborhood, general area as the proposed transitional home. There's 2 or 3 things I'd like to say. I've talked to you all many times. I was on the task force that reviewed and put together the operational plan that the city would find acceptable. We have looked at many, many different locations over the years. Commercial buildings, buildings out of the city limits, buildings with large areas of play, buildings with many bedrooms, buildings that would house all kinds of people. We're trying hard to find the satisfactory answer. We went through zoning commission to have the plan approved to begin with. The zoning commission put together the zones that we are approved in. This is one of those zones. It is very close to resources. It's 3 blocks away from the workforce. It's around the corner from the Salvation Army. It's around the corner from Head Start. There is plenty of room in the home to help a diverse population. We will be helping more than 15 people a year because people will move in, get on their feet, and move out and be tax-paying, contributing members of our community. I myself have housed quite a few homeless over the years. Each one of them have moved out, gotten employment, become a contributing member of El Dorado, married, had children, raise families, put their children in schools, and become proud of themselves. I've lived here for 20 years. My father was military. I've lived all over the world. I married into the military. The man that I married was from El Dorado, Kansas. That's how I ended up here. I can tell you that my first impression of El Dorado, and for many years after I moved here, is people here have a hard life. I have never seen so many people that struggle every day to find their way. I see them walking down the streets. I'm very thirsty. I see them walking down the streets. I see them carrying their bags with them. I've watched it for years. I see them housing with other families in town. I live downtown, in the residential neighborhood downtown. I know where the police are called, and I know where they're not called, and I know how often they are called. I know the drug epidemic, and I know the crime element here in this town. I know where it comes from. I'm a private person. I don't like to get pulled into things. But there comes a time when you have to take a stand, whether you want to or not. I didn't want to. And I denied watching these people for years. And then finally, somebody had to stand up for them. They are young people, young adults, in a low economic area. They want to make their way, and they need a little help. And they will make their way. I've seen it. We have to give them that chance. This is not something that I wanted to do. It's something that I have to do. Or I can't live with myself. It's something this community needs to do. And I'm asking you to do it.
I'm Stan Seymour. I live at 827 North Washington. I pastor the Christian church. Our property adjoins the proposed location. And you're lucky because I'm not going to go over everything I had to say. I've been listening to all of this, and I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. But two words is what I'm hearing. One is need, the other one is location. Now, the ones that are, most of them over this side that are saying location is the problem are not saying, at least most of them are not saying there's not a need. What they're saying is, and I've pastored this church for over 25 years, is there may be a need, but why does it have to be at my location? And you're going to get that in almost every residential area that you try to place it in. I mean, that's just the stark reality, whether the stigma is justified or not. I mean, if you had two mirror communities, two mirror neighborhoods, exactly alike, you might have a difficulty deciding where you and your wife wanted to raise your family. However, if those mirror neighborhoods had one difference, and one of them was that one of them was going to have transitional housing, I'd almost bet you your wife would say, I want to raise my kids in the other neighborhood. That's the hard truth of it, and it's a stigma that probably is not justified. But that stigma will rob the location people of property value. Now, to the BHI people, you must feel like you're Moses and you've wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. I applaud your efforts. I've worked in homeless shelters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I know that there is a need. But I'm going to ask you, because my neighbors, the carriage house ladies, are here, and my other neighbors over here for 25 years have been to my office. They've stopped me in the parking lot, and they've called me on the phone. They said, please don't support it. And so I want to be a good neighbor to my neighbors. But I also want to be a good neighbor to the homeless, because we do have a responsibility that we try to redeem humanity, that we do try to help them and lift them up. And so we need to find a win-win situation for we have a need people and we have a location people. Now, I don't put the monkey on your back. I want you to be part of the solution. BHI, Butler Homeless Initiative. If it's Butler, I'm going to ask you to engage mayor, commissioners, city manager. I'm going to ask you to engage the other municipalities in Butler County in a conversation about the needs of the homeless and about available grants. I'm going to ask you to discuss how El Dorado and our sister cities can partner with our community college to get a certificate program in place to help in the areas of a hospitality certificate, so these people might be able to get their foot in the doorway of a motel or hotel, to help them with a CNA so that they could get a job at a nursing home. And then maybe there's an incentive there that if they work the program, you can help them get their LPN. And where we're not just providing just transitional housing and a little bit of counseling, and by the way, I'm also a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, but that we also make sure that they're getting the training that is needed. I'm going to ask you to discuss what kind of internship programs and employment can be offered. And I'm going to ask you to determine what land or building might be available so that we can have a location outside of a residential area, so our needs friends will not be bumping up against this every time they try to get a home that they can use. Because I believe there is a need. But along with that need, we have to worry about our location people. And on top of that, I believe there's a little bit of a safety issue. Since our property adjoins there, for the safety of the residents, I think there needs to be a fence there. And I wish this was not on tape, because some of my drivers in my parking lot aren't the best drivers in the world. And so if they come cutting across the property, we may have some other problems there if they get hit. And so, you know, like I said, some of my members maybe just assume I didn't talk about their driving that way. But so I'm putting the monkey on your back. You know, we really need to get a coalition among the cities of El Dorado, really address this problem instead of kicking it around, and try to make it a win-win situation for both sides. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stan.
I'd like to ask Stan to be on our board. I think that's pretty good. I want to read to you my devotion today. Sorry if I start crying. It is good that you recognize your weakness. That keeps you looking to me, your strength. Abundant life is not necessarily health and wealth. It is living a continual dependence on me. Instead of trying to fit this day into a preconceived mold, relax and be on the lookout for what I am doing. Folks, I want to withdraw my ask tonight. And I want you to come to the table with BHI, and let's find a solution. Let's find a solution that will make everybody happy. We've been at this since 2007, and I'm tired, and y'all are tired of listening to me. I don't want to come back. We got to do something to help the need. But the people who live wherever it is have a voice too. So come on, let's make this work, and let's make it work for everybody. Thank you.
Petition's been removed.
Yeah. So we won't need to vote.
Thank you very much. This is a good place to be.
I'd like to make a statement that, from this position, I'll take that challenge. And I think there is something that we need to do. The need is there. I understand the location. Don't think I didn't spend the whole weekend going back and forth on this issue because it affects this community. The need is there. I would encourage anyone to read this thing right here because they have an excellent plan of what they're trying to do. So it's the matter of trying to find that, and I know the city's got properties around, and I'm thinking that it's time that we take on Mr. Seymour's challenge.
I wanna take some responsibility too. I sat on the Butler Homeless Initiative, on the Transitional Housing Committee, and it was a big committee. I mean, there were 20-some odd people on that, and we had many, many meetings. And I don't know if we ever had a complete consensus. I think people were tired. And when we made the recommendation, I was awful leery about one of the proposed zoning places was R1 and R3. So I take some responsibility for that too, because I signed off on it too. And I agree with the mayor. I think we can do it, but it's gonna take some commitment. And I don't mean from the BHI folks, I think they're committed. But if we go through this again and we find a place, then we're just gonna have to suck it up and do it.
Well, just tell us where the place is.
You won't find a place. You won't find a place where residents or businesses won't object to it. I'm just gonna tell you that. I mean, I think that's.
We were at this.
So where are the homeless people?
I don't know. Hey, look,
We just throw them in the cave or something?
no, we gave you guys a path to yes, and you guys met those standards on this deal tonight, so I was disappointed that Melody withdrew the,
I'm disappointed too.
but,
I want to say, I'll just get right up here, all right? I take one sentence. The people that are here tonight objecting from that neighborhood, I have housed their grown children. I have housed their grown children.
okay.
Okay, Herb, would you like to say anything?
I think Bill's dying.
Yeah.
I guess I feel sorry for him.
Yeah, I do too.
I think you've vetted this issue.
Yeah.
Melody said what she has. You all have. I think you're ready for a motion to adjourn.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Oh, sure you can, Sonny, come up.
I really am going to make short on words. There's so much time could be saved if you spent time with the Safe House, the board, the history of that. So much time could be saved as far as fact-finding. And these fears are genuine. I would never tell people that they don't have true fears, but are they founded in fact? So the Safe House would be a good place to start before you look at any other properties. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.